Hello, I'm Derek OKADA. I'm honored to be your career chair for the Alumni Club of Los Angeles, and I want to personally welcome you to our November career event. This is an event that's sponsored by the University of Chicago Alumni Association nationally, and there's several events going on across the country. We're pleased to have Matt Donato here from the university, who's here personally to represent our Alumni Association. He'll be presenting as well. And this event itself is to help promote the mission of the university to provide services for the alumni community, including the graduate programs, but as much also the college graduates. And so we very much value your attendance here, both as those establishing their careers as those that are also in transition. So I just wanted to mention that today's theme is about networking. It's more than just networking itself. It's about kind of remarketing ourselves wherever we are in our stage in our career. You know, thinking outside the box, thinking about how can we think a little bit more broadly about how we utilize the connections we have from people that we know from various traditional means as well as non-traditional. We have a great panel of speakers today, and we will go through their bios as each of them come up. But I just wanted to say that there was a recent article on the Ladders that talked about alumni networking roles. And it's very interesting that it says that the do's and not the do's of what to use with your alumni associations. You'd be surprised how some people actually use their networks in ways that are probably not the best, such as this example where they talked about a person contacting a CIO of a major Fortune 500 company to say, I want a job. I know none of us would ever do that, but the point of this opportunity is to promote those networks that we have and to get an introduction, to get a face behind the emails. And we all come from different walks of life, and I think that the opportunity to build relationships starts here. So I want to start out with our first speaker. Amber AVINES is a friend of mine who I've actually gotten to know almost exclusively from social networking. So this is a living example of how you build a network. Amber and I knew each other from the Los Angeles Times, where we both worked. She had a very similar stint in LA Times, working in the corporate communications department while I worked in finance. She's an award-winning journalist with experiences in broadcasting, publishing, communications, and public relations. She is currently a social media consultant in Los Angeles, where she helps individuals and companies tap into their power of new media platforms. She maintains an active presence on Twitter, Facebook, Posterous, Friends Feeds, LinkedIn, Plancast, and 2 other blogs. Amber also has successfully used social media to strengthen her personal brand, build her network, and attract new businesses. She has a BA in communications from Pepperdine University. So please welcome Amber.
Okay, before we get started, I just want a little hand poll here. How many folks in the audience are on Twitter? Okay, a couple. How many of you sent a tweet today saying you were coming to a networking event today? Derek, you're good. Okay, how many of you use geolocation tools like GoWalla, Whirl, Foursquare, Brightkite? Derek and someone else in the back. Okay, did you check into this place today saying that you were at a career development workshop? No. Okay, alrighty. So now that we've gotten through that, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the reason I asked you those questions is because those 2 tools right off give you an opportunity to promote yourself and to promote your school. If you were actively on Twitter, and if you happen to have a smartphone with you today, the hashtag that is for this event, and basically a hashtag is basically a way that you categorize information. And lots of events have hashtags so people can meet and other people can follow information who are currently on Twitter. So if you're on Twitter and you want to send a tweet, our hashtag for today is UChicago LA. My Twitter handle is Words Done Right. And if you want to tweet any information that comes out today, that is encouraged. That's not considered bad manners in the least. So Derek gave you an overview of who I am. Basically, all my background has to do with messaging, getting the right information to the right audience at the right time. And that includes public relations, social media, and all those related, all those related areas. So what I have is I have two blogs. One is a business blog that tackles issues like advertising, marketing, social media, product placement, things of that nature. And I also have a blog that's a personal interest of mine, which is animals. You can also find me on Twitter. I have, in addition to just a personal Facebook page, I have a Facebook business page, a Posters page, Plankiss profile, and a friend feed profile. You can also find me on Colors Me, YouTube, Tumblr, and LinkedIn. Which leads me to where can I find you? If I don't know who you are, what your skill sets are, what you have to offer, that you're looking for a job, I can't help you. And basically what these tools allow you to do is to let people into your world that are good contacts that can help you market yourself, make interesting contacts through other events, through social media, who might result in business leads and in job opportunities. So if you think you just want to stick with traditional networking, that's great, but you can't ignore all the platforms that are out there that will really help you maximize your brand and showcase your abilities. In this day and age, you are your own PR firm, and that is huge. Before you had to rely on someone to talk about you or to get your information out. You don't need that anymore. You can talk about yourself and profile all the great attributes that you can bring to an employer if you utilize these social media tools. So before we get into some specifics here, I want to look at some very basic information. Your web presence. Your search, what comes up about you in search, is really what's going to define you. So you need to think about what your personal brand is, what you want people to think about when they hear your name, and what you want to be associated with. All of this comes down to marketing yourself. You want to think about that image that you want to put out in a public forum. And then as you do that, you really want to make calculated decisions of what information you want to make public and what information you want to keep private. I do both. I'm very public in some ways and very private in others, and that's okay. You can do whatever it is that you feel comfortable with. But the fact is whatever you put out there on the web, people will see. And that's why you need to always be sure that you're making decisions that protect your own image and the information that you want to convey out there, because once it's out there, it's out there. Even if you delete it, other web pages might pick it up, and it's cached for life, so be really careful about that. How many folks here Google themselves on a regular basis? Okay, good. If you're not doing that about once a week or at a minimum once a month, you don't know what people are saying about you. And depending on what your profession is or what your industry is, that could be huge. So you always want to put your name in search engines, find out if you have a common name, where you're ranking, because if you're up for a job, for example, and the recruiter Googles you before you come in, if you have a very common name, you might not appear to page until search page 20. Now, if you're in a very public profession like marketing or public relations, and that's the case, you've already lost the job. If you're in maybe in accounting and something that isn't quite as public position, that might not be as crucial, but you always want to find out what information is floating out about you, because someone could use your name or reference something that you've done and you're not aware of it until you search Google. I've had people post photos sometimes that weren't the most complimentary photos, and I found them on search. And then I contacted that person and said, hey, I really don't like that photo, can you take it down? And they did. What you need to do is really, when you're looking at all this, pretend that you're a hiring manager. That, remember back in the day when you were looking for a job and people would tell you, change your outgoing message on your phone? You know, forget the cutesy stuff, don't have the dog barking or the kids. Say, hi, this is John Smith, thank you for calling today, I'm sorry I missed your call. And they tell you to be professional. Well, that's really what social media is that you are making sure that you're putting out your best image possible for anyone that could potentially be interested in you in a professional capacity. So I'm going to talk just about 3 of my favorite platforms today. There's lots more, and if you have questions, you can either come to my roundtable or ask a question at the end of the panel discussion. But I'm going to ask all of you to raise your hands for a couple parts of this section, just so I have an idea of where everybody is. Okay, LinkedIn. How many people here are on LinkedIn? Excellent. Okay, so if you're not on LinkedIn, you must be. This is non-negotiable. This is your best opportunity to really showcase all your professional experience. How many people have updated their LinkedIn resume in the last 6 months? Okay. The last 3 months? The last month? Okay. How many of you are currently working? Okay. How many of you are looking for jobs? Okay. When you look at your LinkedIn profile, whether you're working, if you're working, let's start with that. If you're working, as you do additional things at work and create additional projects and have achievements at work, you always need to be revisiting your LinkedIn profile to make sure that it's up to date. If you did it once and you haven't revisited it and you're working, there's probably lots of great stuff that you haven't included that you want other people to know that you know. So you always want to do that. You want to be sure that your LinkedIn profile is 100% complete. There's a little bar graph on the right-hand side that says completeness. You want it to stay 100%. And one of the ways you do that is by seeking recommendations. How many people have recommendations? Okay, a few of you. Those of you who are on LinkedIn and don't have recommendations, that should be the first thing you do this weekend, is get in contact with former coworkers, former employers, people who can say good things about you, because you can say all you want about yourself, but it doesn't mean anything until someone else says it about you. So make sure that you don't overlook those recommendations. Status updates are another really great way for you to market yourself. If you're looking for a job, let people know. If you're currently employed and you're going to a conference, today for example, put it in your status update. When you tell people what you're doing and what you're learning, it lets them know that, hey, this isn't someone who's just really comfortable and they're sitting back. This is someone who's taking their continuing education really seriously, and they're involved and they're active in making sure that they're always at the top of their field. LinkedIn groups. Groups are an incredibly powerful tool that unfortunately not as many people use as they should. You can find a group for anything on LinkedIn. Any professional group, any industry, there's lots of job-seeking groups on LinkedIn, and these are another great way for you to connect with people who you would never otherwise meet, who might be good business partners, might send you good job leads. LinkedIn groups are very powerful. You can join a total of 50, and that's the only limitation, so be cognizant of that. And if you ever decide to follow a group that you're not interested in and you're at your max, you can always unfollow it and refollow another group. Now, the thing about LinkedIn is there's different ways of networking, and this really comes down to your own comfort level of what you want to do. There's people who are called lions, and those are LinkedIn open networkers. And those are people who will accept an invitation from anyone. They don't care. They want the high number, and they want access to all the information, because when you're connected to someone, it means you can see more information. And a lot of people like that, so they want big networks. I, on the other hand, only connect with people that I know. People who can vouch for me and my skill set, people that I can confidently recommend. So I'm very discriminating with who I invite into my LinkedIn network and the invitations that I accept. In all of this, don't be modest. Sell yourself. Tell people what you have to do. But don't be a braggart and don't embellish, because in this online world, it will come back to bite you. So always be confident, but make sure that you're being very truthful, and never be desperate. Twitter. How many, let's see, we already did that. The folks that are on Twitter right now are really seizing opportunities for networking. I was talking to someone before the panel started today, and they said, I don't have time for Twitter. All of you had time to come to this networking event today. And really, Twitter is no different if you use it properly, if you use it for business and networking purposes. Anytime you go onto Twitter, it's like going to a networking event if you choose to use it that way. Now, there's some ways that you can get more out of Twitter than others, and let me just go over a couple of them with you. Your profile. Fill out your profile completely. Some people just sign up and then they expect miracles to happen. You have to make your own miracles. There's only 4 things you need to fill in on Twitter, and make sure they're all filled out. It's your name, use your real name, nothing cutesy. Location, use your real city, not La La Land or Planet Earth. There's a link and there's a profile where you write a little bio about yourself. In your bio, say a little bit about yourself professionally and a little bit about yourself personally. This will make you real. This will allow people to find something in common with you. If you say, you like woodworking, or, I'm a tech executive who, has a woodworking shop, and I love South Carolina in the summer. I'm making this up, but basically it allows me to know a little bit about you and say, hey, yeah, I have a summer house in South Carolina, or I do woodworking too, or oh yeah, I used to work for that company doing technology too. You were there before me, and it allows people to engage with you and learn a little bit more about you. Now, you can find great information if you use the search tools via Twitter. You can find people who are in your niche. You can find organizations, professional organizations, or other people who are industry leaders that you can learn from. You can find the target companies if you're looking for a specific job. Lots of big companies are on Twitter now, and lots of recruitment departments from those companies are on Twitter now. So you can find about those job openings, and you can make connections with recruiters before you even go in for a job, before the job that you want to apply for is even open or listed. You can start establishing those really good connections via Twitter. Let people know that you're looking for a job. Again, don't say, oh, please, I really need it. But say, hey, you know, hey, I was working for XYZ company and I just got laid off. If you know anyone who needs a great tech guy, give me a shout. And if you put that information out there, as you're establishing these relationships, it puts you in a much better situation. Hashtags we talked about earlier, there's great Twitter chats that you can find through hashtags. There's a job hunt chat. There's a couple that I personally like that are about blogs and journalism and PR. There's a pet one that personally interests me. So you can find any group of people who share your interests personally or professionally through Twitter chats. And again, it's an event just like this. You're finding like-minded people who you want to engage with, who have a common interest, and they're incredibly powerful. You can also use lists. If those of you are on Twitter, use lists. It's a great way to organize all your information. There's millions of tweets flying around on Twitter every day. It can be overwhelming. But if you create lists to really target that information, you can only look at, that allows you to look at the information that's really relevant to you. And you can make those lists private, so no one has to see what it is you're really looking at. Blogs. How many here have a blog? A couple of you. Okay. There's 4 primary blog platforms: WordPress, Blogger, Tumblr, and Posterous. WordPress is the most popular. WordPress and Blogger are pretty much great free platforms that allow you to create really polished, professional-looking sites. And I've tried WordPress. I found it a little more difficult, a little bit more techy, and a little bit more effort to publish information. Therefore, I have a site on Blogger. And you don't need to know anything about technology. You don't need to know HTML code. You can make everything look really pretty with one click. Tumblr and Posterous are also blogging sites. They're not so much for writing long articles about pieces of information, but a lot of people use them to post photographs or videos that they find interesting. The thing about blogs is you don't need to be a professional writer to write a blog, and you don't need to be an expert at something. You just need to write about what you know. Now, a lot of you might say, I'm too busy, I don't have time for this. But let's look at the benefits that exist there. Okay, so suppose you're a marketing executive or you work in public relations. You can start a blog and you can start talking about things that you know. And then I find your blog and say, oh, wow, Darren really knows his stuff. Or you can talk about if your area of expertise is search engine marketing. And then someone comes across your blog and says, oh, well gosh, I'm going to hire him, or I want to talk to him about doing some consulting. It allows you to market yourself. Now, if blogs aren't something that you want to write, it's not worth your time, another great thing that you can do is go visit other people's blogs. Find people who are leaders in your industry who are talking about what they do and what's happening in the marketplace. Comment on their blogs. That gives you a couple benefits. Number one, it allows other people who are in your area who are looking at that blog to see you. If you link back to your LinkedIn profile, or your website, or your blog, or your Twitter, it allows people to learn more about you. You're making a connection with the person who writes the blog, and you're putting yourself in an environment with your peers who you have something in common with, and you can showcase your knowledge. So the thing about all this is there are no shortcuts, and just the same as traditional networking, this does take time. You have to be comfortable and confident in what you're doing, and some people need to kind of tiptoe into this new arena, and that's totally fine. The part about it is a lot of people sign up for a Facebook page or a LinkedIn page or a Twitter profile, and then they send out a couple of tweets or write a couple small things over the course of a month, and they say, well, miracles didn't happen, and this isn't for me. It takes time. If you meet someone here today who you really like, and you see them at another event, you might have to run across them a couple times until you really feel like you have a relationship with them. But the really great thing about social media is it allows you to kind of fast forward that. So if I meet you here today, I don't have to wait till the next networking event to see you and say hi and to further our relationship. I can send you a tweet and say, hey, it was really good talking to you about the new tech platform that's out there. Looking forward to checking it out. Let me know what you think. And I've already started establishing a relationship with you. Anyone you meet here today, you can follow up with. And if you're on Twitter, you really should be following up with people. If, when you're done here today, check out the UChicago LA hashtag. You can find other people you may not have met. Even though it's a small group, chances are you didn't meet everyone here. And if everyone here was on Twitter, you could meet everyone here after the event, even if you didn't meet them at the actual event. So the key with all of this is you're doing all this stuff online, but you have to then take it offline and you have to take it to the real world. There's lots of great networking events that are out there that you can only learn about through social media. If you go to LinkedIn, there's LinkedIn events, Twitter, great information on events. Every single event I learn about, maybe 90%, I learn about through Twitter. And I go to some great events that are sponsored by really great companies with good information. Meetup.com and tweetup.com are two other sites that are worth checking out. Eventbrite. Plancast is somewhat new and a really good site. Basically, it allows you to say what you're doing. So you could put today into Plancast, hey, I'm going to the University of Chicago career networking event. And then one of your friends could say, oh, well, Sally's going there. That sounds interesting, and I graduated with her. I didn't know about that, or I missed the email. And they can find out about information from you. So when you establish your network of people that you have in common with, that you share an industry with, you can see what they're doing and learn about events from them. It's a really great site. And also Facebook has events. But you really need to be taking those online connections and making real-world connections with them. So what this all allows you to do is to make connections you could never make before. You can go to this event today, and that's great. And if you meet everyone here, you've met 60 great people. If you log on to Twitter, there's no limit on how many great people you can meet. It's all about really marketing and promoting yourself. And this is free advertising for you and your personal brand. And if you're taking your career seriously, these are tools that you really need to implement. And once people realize that you know your stuff, you understand your industry, people will start referring to you as someone who's knowledgeable. They'll give you job leads. I've gotten great job leads for great companies and for freelance gigs, consulting gigs, because of the connections I've developed on social networking. And as Derek said, he and I worked at the LA Times, but we never met. So it was only through Facebook that we wound up connecting, and then we connected on Twitter, and Derek visits my blog, and I'm here today. So, that's a really powerful example for how all these things work. Now, there's a very high potential. Many of you are listening to me and saying, this isn't for me. And the thing is you kind of just need to dive in and to really understand the potential here, and that what works for me may not work for you. But if you do any of this, there's a couple key things you need to keep in mind. You have to be real. Don't talk about things that aren't really you. Don't claim to be an expert in something that you're not. If something interests you, talk about it. If you want to talk about your industry, go right ahead. But you need to be who you really are, because if you try to be anything else, it's just not going to work and it will backfire on you. Find your comfort zone. Find out which one of these sites work for you. As many places as I'm on, there's just as many that I'm not. And that's because either I have privacy issues with it, or there's sites that are a little bit more frivolous and don't have business value. So you need to find out which things really work for you. And if you decide to commit to any of these things, you need to be actively involved and engaged in it. You can't just check in occasionally, because you may as well not do it. So again, everyone here today is a contact. I hope you not only meet with everyone here today, but then also follow up via social networking. And if you send me a tweet, I will happily create a list of folks that were here today so you can find other people who attended the event. So it all comes down to, again, what you want to do. This is all happening regardless if you choose to participate in it or not. And if you don't want to fully immerse yourself in it, that's okay. but you at least need to have an understanding of the opportunities that are available to you. So when you look at your career search, your professional profile, your personal brand, you really need to take all this stuff really seriously and find how you can most effectively do this. All these tools are available to you for free, and they allow you to not be dependent on others. You can really set yourself up to be knowledgeable, to be respected, and to be the go-to person for your specific industry. And it's incredibly powerful. So in closing, the top link is to my blog. I wrote a blog post about being here today. And if you want to leave a comment about anything that was discussed, or if you had any questions, feel free to comment there. I asked other people to chime in on my blog about what their personal experiences were with social media networking, and some people have already left some really great comments, so you can see that there's value here. It's nothing frivolous. It's what you make it, and if you choose to use it for business and professional networking, it's really very powerful. And if you're on Twitter and want to send me a tweet, again, my handle is Words Done Right, and if you want to thank our wonderful event host here, Derek's Twitter handle is OKADA, and then be sure to use the UChicago LA hashtag so people know that you are doing something today to improve your professional skills. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. I really look to Amber as my social media guru and coach. She was asking me for the event, so have you tweeted about this event yet? And I was like, no, I haven't. But does it count that I was at the Alumni Volunteer Caucus sitting there during the session and actually tweeting about it during that? She's like, yes, that's good. And I was like, okay, I thought I was breaking social convention here in the front row. But fortunately, the presenter was the director of IT, and she understood that she was on board with doing that. I was trying to catch it in real time. But again, the one thing I found from this is true. Amber and I, we crossed paths at LA Times. I knew who she was. She was really involved with leading a lot of our monthly manager meetings. And but we never had a chance to actually meet. And we crossed paths online. But today, we felt like we were, close friends, or at least I did. So, and I followed her blog, and there's a lot of great information on her blog. I really encourage you to go see that. One thing that came to mind when I was listening to Amber was that it's very easy to put static information out there on the web. You can put your LinkedIn profile. Some of you may have resumes out there for your company. But how often is that visited? And if that is not dynamic, then that person gets a static image of your persona. So the idea of having Twitter, having these social networks that are live and dynamic, is to show that you are an engaged person. And while probably the first rule of convention of social networking is to say, hey, I'm at the store looking at cereal, that's not of interest. But there is value in sharing information that's really meaningful. So now as you transition from kind of the out-of-the-box or kind of contemporary tools to what's also available to you to manage your career, I wanted to introduce our next speakers. We're pleased to have two distinguished people from Robert Half International. PEGGY BAGGOTT and Chris GUZMAN from Robert Half are part of the world's leading specialized staffing firm. And PEGGY is currently a Metro Market Manager for Robert Half, with over 21 years of experience in staffing, beginning with Accountants Overload. And Chris is a Senior Staffing Manager with ACCOUNTEMPS, division of Robert Half, and has spent over 14 years with the company. So please help me in welcoming PEGGY and Chris as they present on how you manage your career.
Good morning. How's everyone doing? Good? Are you awake? I know I came and I really needed the coffee, and then I just had half a glass of wine. So I'm not only awake, but I'm really comfortable too. So we're all good. Chris is actually going to pass out a copy of what we're going to go over, and it's going to be a lot of information today. Listening to Amber, which I loved what you went over, and I'm going to tie some of that in because I think it's critical, regardless of where you are in your job, if you're searching for a new job or if you're trying to manage your existing career. But so you've got a handout. Does everybody have a pen? Everybody has a pen? If not, let's get you a pen. And then I think before we even get to ours, I'm going to ask everybody, you just heard Amber, so someone who's an expert in her field, share some great information. And so I would love for everybody, just jot down what your takeaway is from Amber. Hopefully you heard something that's going to call you to action when you get home today. So just identify one thing that you're either going to go research, do, sign up for, or what have you. Just take a minute and do that. Okay, does anybody want to share what they wrote down? Okay, great.
On my Facebook page, I made a comment about the results of the recent election.
Okay.
So when I get home, I'm going to remove it.
Okay, good. Nice. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else have a takeaway? Yes.
I always like to read the New York Times, like the letters to the editor.
Uh-huh.
And I like to Charles most of the comments. So I like reading generating on my own.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so hopefully everybody has some sort of takeaway. Amber, I know that when you were talking, I wrote down like 5 things. I won't share all of them. Yes? Okay, so we heard the one comment was from Facebook, and he commented on his election, right? And that's going off. And then yours was about the New York Times, correct? Okay, I'm going to have you stand up to make sure that everybody can hear, because I don't know if everybody heard what you had said.
Sure, like reader comments, or especially like David Brooks. Whenever David Brooks writes an article, he usually gets like 200 or 300 reader comments, and then some of the reader comments are actually very insightful. And David Brooks has a strong Chicago connection. But then I always just read them, but I never thought about adding my skills to it. But after listening to what Amber said, I might maybe add something, because I thought it was just taking that comment, but it's what's not putting any much use.
Okay, terrific. Everybody heard what he had to say, right? Okay, so LinkedIn, though, I do want to reference something that Amber said about LinkedIn. Again, how many, show of hands, who has a LinkedIn profile? Okay, so who's actually has some connections on LinkedIn? 50 or more? 100? 500? Okay, so whatever, there's different ways that you can approach it. I can tell you from a recruiter's perspective, and Chris and I have been recruiting now for a really long time, LinkedIn is a wonderful, wonderful tool. It's something, obviously, since it's web-based, it goes with you everywhere. You can always update it. And as recruiters, we actually prefer to secure talent for our clients off of LinkedIn over the job boards. Okay, so the job boards is something that we absolutely access, but that's not really where we get our candidates. Okay, so we'll get it through networking, we'll get it through referrals, but we get a lot through LinkedIn. So I can tell you in the last year, I've personally placed a CIO, a CFO, a business systems analyst, an application development director. I mean, I can go on. And this is because I was able to go look on someone's profile, and I could actually see what companies they were at. And I knew my client had told me what companies they want the person to be from. I mean, we got really creative, used that data, and found employment for these people. So that is one thing I would encourage you to do, is make sure your LinkedIn, profile is sharp, okay? And keep it up to date, because it's a great takeaway. So before we get started, Chris, why don't you we're gonna use this board a little bit. I hope this mic, if I get really loud, just raise your hand if you can't hear me. I want to get a feel for what motivated people to come here today. So if anybody's willing to volunteer, why did you take time out of your Saturday to come here?
Any excuse to go to Long Beach.
Okay, so any excuse. Long Beach is a great area. Agreed. Okay, and then what about you?
I'm ready for a different job.
You're ready for a different job. Okay. Anybody else share those thoughts? Anybody else that's looking perhaps for a different job, career change, or is in transition? Okay, so there's several hands of people that are in transition. And that's, And I would recommend too, let's say you're not working right now. A lot of people will say, oh, I got laid off. A better word track on that is that you're in transition. Okay, a little bit more of a positive spin. So I would suggest that those are the words that you use. But anybody here that's currently in a career and maybe just looking, how can I manage that career more effectively? Okay. And that's really the focus of what we're going to talk about today is whether you're looking for a job, you want to make a job change, maybe you're currently employed, or you just want to figure out how to better manage your career. We're going to cover that in our time here today. And, I think our big thing, and I hope I remember to click this. Okay, let me I'm pretty good with the clicker thing. Okay. Yes, nice. Okay, so managing your career, if you think about it like a builder, right, or a contractor before they go out and build, let's say, a commercial building, is there something they have to have before they do that? Permits, license, what else? Tools. Anything else? Financing, right? Okay, and maybe they have to have some sort of blueprint. Plans and blueprint. So really, our message today, and take what you like and leave the rest, but hopefully there'll be a couple things you can take away. But really, if you think about your career, and we spoke earlier to, where's the investment banker who's been in the business for 2 years? Okay, there she is, see? So we spoke with her a little bit before we got started, and how many hours did you work your first year in investment banking? Stand up, let her hear. There's a number attached. Tell us. She worked about 100 hours a week. She actually slept on the copier sometimes because it was warm. She figured that out. But the point is, she spent a lot of her working hours at work. And if you think about the amount of the days or hours in a day, the majority of the time that we spend is working. So if that's the case, it makes sense, or we think it makes sense, to invest time in developing a career strategy and a career plan and literally putting it to paper, okay? So there's several steps that we're gonna go through, and we're gonna really ask that you consider doing this, okay? And before we kind of dive into this, I think that, in terms of the rules of the game, here we go, the 21st century rules of the game. So prove yourself, learn, and advance. If we think back to maybe our parents, or I don't know, even 10 or 15 years ago, sort of the mindset was to go to college, get a degree, find a job with a stable company, go in there, work really hard, stay out of trouble, and you could probably retire there, for the most part. Has anybody heard that? Anybody's parents maybe was able to go through it that way? So the rules, we know for sure, you guys, they've changed dramatically, and it's not so much about employment security, it's really more about job security. So, and there's a difference between the two. So if you think about job security, you have to really think in terms of the work that you do, whether it's working on projects or in your role. You have to think about, how can I do it in a way that's going to continually secure what I do and grow your skills and continue to make you more marketable in your field of study or choice. So performance, you guys, is what it's about. It's not tenure. It really don't even think in terms of, like Chris, you've been with our company for 14 years, which we're really proud of, and he's proud of, but he comes to work every day as if he just started. I mean, this guy comes in every day. He's like the first one in, the last one to leave. Incredible amount of focus, drive. He pre-plans his day. I mean, he acts like a classic textbook new hire from our company. But he's been there for 14 years. So, you have to look at that. It doesn't really matter how long you've been in your job. It doesn't. You have to think about how you perform your job every day and how am I adding value to the organization. Okay, so a couple of things in terms of performance counts, not tenure, setting goals. So part of your career management strategy, I don't even know, is this still, can you hear me okay? Okay. It's like, no, okay. So anyways, you think about performance, forget tenure, just forget it, okay? It is really about your performance and the results that you're achieving, the value that you're adding, and goal setting. You need to be setting goals in your career, both short-term and long-term. We'll get into some ideas on that. And then staying current. So with every industry or business, there are publications, there's associations that you can join. Obviously, we've got this great, great world with the internet. And then also there's seminars. There's things like this. I applaud everybody for being here on a Saturday. I think it's great. And like Amber said, make it count for you. If I were you, I would be blogging about today. You know, I would get the word out because not everybody is doing this. I'm sure there's people that are sleeping in or they're at a game or what have you, so you should feel great about that. But these are all things that in order to manage your career in this century, you need to continue to be looking at. Teamwork. This is something I really want to stress, and I'll be able to do that if I can click this. Okay, so think about in terms of, you know, the past. It used to be about individual performers, my star performers, someone who's getting like amazing results. Senior management and all the surveys that our company has done, and we do a lot of C-suite surveying. And what we've been hearing a lot of over the last, I would say, couple of years is senior management is not so focused on what an individual is doing in terms of their contribution. They're more focused on what teams are doing. Okay, so if you think about that, while we always need to have great individual performance, we need to figure out how to effectively work on a team. And a lot of teams today, they're cross-functional, they're across the borders, right? There's global teams that you work on, there's teams you work on and you never see the people. So if you think about that, what that might entail in terms of what you need to be as a professional, not only good at your, like, you know, your skill set being really great and tight, but there's a lot of other variables now that come into play. Okay, your communication skills, right? Via email, how you leave voicemail messages. I mean, it opens up a lot of things that we need to look at as professionals. So think about teamwork. It's critical for success and your ability to collaborate with others and also make it, it's like there's no I in team. We've all heard about that. You need to be able to find ways to work on a team where you're actually sharing the successes and at the same time, you're getting some, you know, you're being noted in terms of your individual contribution and you're adding value. So a couple of tips that I'm going to throw out there is looking at your current career or as you look at a new job is seeking out an active role to be on project teams. A lot of companies, and we're seeing this now, companies that have actually purchased big new ERP systems. And maybe they purchased them 2 or 3 years ago, but they're now actually starting to do something with them, maybe using all the modules that are available, reporting capabilities, whatever it is. So they're looking for talent internally who knows their business and can actually provide a lot of great input. So like serving on teams like that, where you're adding value to a major corporate objective is great visibility for you. So look out for those things, but don't be passive. Making sure that, like, make sure that whoever you report to knows that you're interested in being on project teams. And when you're on that team, put the goal of the team and the company first. Keep a very open mind, stay positive, and really try to be a force in reducing communication bottleneck, which happens a lot on teams. Next, and this kind of goes, I think, Amber, you were saying something like this about your own PR firm, right? So we like to look at it as well as like be your own CEO and your own CFO. So anybody have thoughts as far as like what does a CEO do? Anyone? What?
Guides the company.
They guide the company. What else?
Determines the strategic vision for the next 5-10 years.
Okay, awesome. They determine the strategic vision for the next 5-10 years.
They help people deal with inevitable change.
Okay, so helping people deal with change. Yes?
They're the public face of the company.
Okay, so public face. What about a CFO? Chief Financial Officer.
Financial accountability.
Okay, financial accountability.
Where are the big risks?
Okay, so where are the risks? Okay, good. So if you think about what those two leaders would do within an organization, we're saying think of yourself. You really have to be the CEO and the CFO of your own career because nobody else will. All right? So the days, again, of joining a company that will take care of you and the golden parachute, those are gone. Okay, so it's up to us to manage our own careers. So one thing that we're going to suggest is that you actually audit your career on an ongoing basis. Something typically that a CFO would be responsible for within a company, okay? And then manage your career, keeping the goals and the vision in mind. Make every job or project count, all right? Going through the motions will not work today. You've got to make it count and add value along the way. And then also recognizing when you have a career plateau, rather than just staying in it, figuring out a way either around it, okay, or how to bust through that. That's really important. And then obviously implementing action steps along the way so that everything's in line with the goals that you set out for. So with that, Chris, I'm going to ask you to come up. And Chris is actually going to talk a little bit more. I said to audit your career. What does that really mean? So he's going to talk about a career audit.
All right, someone said this was loud. Is that okay? All right. First, Derek, I want to thank you for allowing Robert Half to come down today. And I also want to thank you for giving us your attention, especially when you hear the word audit. I think a lot of eyes kind of just went a little saggy. How many have actually been involved in an audit? Okay, so we got quite a few folks. How many of us don't even know what audit means? Most of us don't even care what an audit is. All right, yes, Peggy did say that I'm going to talk a little bit about really just putting that term audit into your career. I mean, if you're going to audit anything, why not audit yourself and your career and your goals? So I'm going to present a really long list, and don't get scared because we're not going to do the audit today. But I thought it might make sense to, Peggy said I've been with the company 14 years. Very few times have I learned how to use a clicker. Okay, so this is basically a list of items that you might want to look at, and I know all of you have the handout, but these are definitely areas that you should be thinking about as you prepare to audit your own career, whether it's to find a new opportunity or enhance the current one you have. I'm going to talk about the first two, and then Peggy's going to talk about a couple in the middle. I'll talk about, we're going to mix it up a little bit so everyone can be awake. But research the job market. What does that really mean? How many of us today found their job through someone they know? Okay, so the rest of us, the job knocked on our door and said, here I am. Basically what this means, researching the job market means really looking at the marketplace and seeing what's available. I've been with Robert Half for 14 years, and I've represented a number of accounting and finance professionals, and each professional might be interested in a certain industry or marketplace. You look at Southern California, you look at downtown LA, you look at Los Angeles. There's different areas within Los Angeles that might be favorable in one industry versus another. For example, you look at the West LA side of town, you got a lot of entertainment, what seems to be most predominant. You look at Los Angeles, downtown LA, maybe more legal, maybe more public accounting. You go further east to the San Gabriel Valley, you might find more manufactured industrial. You want to kind of get a chance to really just do some research on the market, just to see if working in that side of town is going to help you achieve your particular goals. Versatility is extremely important right now. And once you identify researching the job market, you're going to want to look at your strengths. In today's marketplace, many clients that I work with are using the word absorption more than once. They're basically absorbing the workflow and allowing less people to do the work. So when it talks about getting an inventory of your own strengths, what you really want to do is you really want to, write down the strengths that you possess. Whether it's the soft skills, whether it's the hard skills, whether it's the accomplishments that you've been involved with. We'll talk about that later. But as you can see, our parents didn't have to do this. And Peggy had mentioned earlier that what we're trying to offer you is some additional suggestions to stay competitive. Because as you apply for that one job, you got to understand that there's probably 100 people behind you that are going to get the same opportunity to get that face time with that employer. So anything you can do to set yourself aside from the rest is only going to benefit you. Okay? We're going to go right into the next screen. And this is a really very colorful chart. Robert Half does a number of surveys. And before I talk about this survey, how many have heard the term soft skills? Good. So most of us have. Anyone to throw any ideas of what a soft skill trait could be? Anyone? Communication. Good. Another one? Anyone?
Team building?
Team building. Excellent. Excellent. How about a third? Negotiations. Okay. A lot of these are, once again, consolidated into the term communication skills. We're finding that more and more customers, or in this case employers, are really looking at those soft skills because people are presenting similar technical skills, but they're coming across with different type of soft skills. So think about that for a second. Why soft skills are so important today. In today's market, as it is, it's very competitive. Employers are looking for individuals who not only can bring the credentials to the table, but also those that can articulate and explain their experience towards that job. You know, I specialize in accounting and finance, so I represent a number of accounting professionals today. And there's two types of accountants. There's accountants that are great number crunchers, and there's accountants that can analyze the bottom line and explain in detail what that number means to the company. Guess which accountant are being favored today? The second one. And you could use that analogy across the board in any industry. It's being able to articulate your abilities, being able to tell a story about your accomplishments to that employer. That individual is the one that's going to stand out in the line of 100 people. Okay? I'll leave you with that. Peggy was going to go into a little bit more detail about the next slide. This particular, I just wanted to quickly go over the colorful chart. As you can see, with soft skills being important, the reason why soft skills are being so important now is because technology is growing. And whether it's accounting, whether it's in sales, whether it's in marketing, whether it's in advertising, information technology is really here to stay. And in this graph, what it really tells us is that a lot of individuals who are actually in a hiring decision are finding out that the most demanding skill set in demand is IT, computer skills. Okay? So if your children are using computers today, and you find out they're teaching you how to go online, something's wrong with that picture. Believe me, I have 3 little girls, and they're already getting classes in Macintosh, and Notebook, and graphs and stuff, and it's amazing to see where the skills are being established now than they were 10 years ago. So with that said, Peggy, why don't we go back to you, and we'll have you take it further and go into more details about soft skills.
Okay, so inventory, Chris talked about taking an inventory and doing the audit, inventorying your strengths. And if you think about your strengths, some people will say, well, that's what I'm really, that means I'm really good at it. But I'd like for you to look at a couple things as you look at strengths. It truly is, what are you interested in? What are you passionate about? And what are you also good at, your abilities? If you take your abilities and then what interests you and you're passionate about, that truly, those are the best strengths, right? Because a lot of us are good, probably can do a lot of things, right? There's probably 10 things we all can do in business, I'd imagine. But out of how many of those things do you really enjoy doing and you're passionate about doing? So when those intersect, again, your interest, your passion and ability, that really is where your strength is. We're going to ask you, as you look at putting together a career strategy, you need to put some time into this and figure out what your strengths really are. If you're not sure, I would say ask people. Ask people that you work with now, that you've worked with in the past. Talk to people that you trust and you know. Inventory, take an inventory of your technical skills. Opportunities. This is something that, if you look at your strengths, how do you match your strengths to the opportunities that are available to you in the marketplace? So before you go out and even start looking for work or start networking, again, we really recommend you figure out what you're really good at, okay? What are you really good at? and take that time up front. So as you look at opportunities and you talk to people, you're going to have a better chance of making that match. Okay. And then self-assessment tools. There's many tools that you can access online. Has anybody ever taken any sort of personality profiles? Have they been helpful? There's a lot out there, and when you can, a lot of times your employers will always see if you can get a copy. It's good for you to have. I'd put that kind of in your career management folder, if you will. But and those change sometimes too, if you ever take the same assessment down the road. But there's tools that are available online as well. If you're really not sure, hey, what I'm good at or what you should be focusing on, try to reach out and find that information.
Excuse me, are there any you recommend?
You know what, there's like the Myers-Briggs, which has been around for a long time. That tends to get, that's very favored in corporate America as a very consistent kind of benchmark of strengths. So that's one that we'll hear a lot of. There's an Omnia profile that also is very good in a much shorter version. And those are probably the two that I've heard of a lot or more consistently.
What's the first one you said?
Myers-Briggs. And it should be, if you have a hand, actually, no, it wouldn't be in your handout what it is. And 77% of the CIOs that we polled said they believe that the increased use of technology is actually going to require workers more than ever to be able to communicate effectively and accurately. And again, if you think about it, our communication now, while it's still over the phone often, a lot of it is email, okay? And a lot of it is in the form of reports or extracting data from reports, right? Taking the numbers maybe and putting a report or a summary around it. And so if you think about email, what's great about email? What is anybody here have like email for a particular reason in business? It's fast, right? And get your point across. What is email? What's one of the challenges of email?
Not subtle at all.
What?
It's not subtle at all.
Yeah, it's not subtle. It doesn't communicate tone. I can tell you as a manager of quite a few people, I've had scenarios where I'm spending time after the fact because somebody sent an email and either was interpreted incorrectly and because it doesn't communicate tone. So it's also too having the knowledge or having the business sense to know, you know what, this isn't an email, this is a conversation I need to have live. Okay? So again, that's, developing that is important as well. It also, has anybody had an email where someone sent it to you, let's say there's 5 people on the email and you accidentally reply all instead of to the person who sent it to you? Yeah, I had one of those 2 weeks ago with a client, and it's painful. And so, again, email, it's fast, it's right at your fingertips, but there's also, with everything, there's trade-offs, right? So I think being aware of that is important, and again, just know your communication skills, even with technology, they're actually more important than ever. Okay. Evaluating your assets and liabilities. We all have each of those. If you think about assets and liabilities, where do you usually find those on a financial statement? Anybody in finance? Balance sheet, right? And a balance sheet is kind of a picture in time. So if you think about your own career assets and liabilities, they're going to change over your career. So we ask everybody, as far as your career management strategy, is that you're kind of taking a balance sheet perspective of your career throughout your career. Okay, some people we know actually do it on a quarterly basis for themselves with their career. And that's really looking at, obviously, very simply, your assets. Some basic things are our education. What's great about everybody sitting here, you all got a fine education. Would you agree? One of the best schools in the name, and a great education. And many of you have gone on to get additional certifications, right? Or have advanced your education, or you're doing seminars, etc. But really taking that and looking at, once you identify what you think that career match might be, what do you need in the way of either additional education or ongoing certification and training? So you need to look at that in terms of assets. Your professional experience. Chris, I think, referenced this. Think in terms of accomplishment and results. Think of ROI, return on investment. If anybody's doing a resume, I recommend that you stay away from listing your title and what your job responsibilities are, because typically everybody knows what a financial analyst does, or for the most part, or PM, or whatever it is. So we really encourage you to actually indicate more in terms of accomplishments. And a quick kind of way to look at it is made, saved, and streamlined. In this job or project, how have I made this company money? How did I save them money? Or streamline a process or a procedure? Okay, to enhance efficiencies, because that's what it's about. So made, save, streamline. I also recommend, too, you guys, that your resume is a living document. Okay, that you're always updating it. Because nothing worse than all of a sudden you're unexpectedly looking for a job and you have to go back and think 2 years ago of a project that you worked on that you know you just killed it, but you can't remember what the ROI was, you can't, you know? Okay, so keep it alive. And that's another reason, you guys, keep your LinkedIn alive. Because with LinkedIn, you just finished a great project. Have one of your internal clients write you a reference on LinkedIn on it. Okay, so again, real-time resume, highly recommend. Think about your liabilities. We all have them. And you'll know what your liabilities are as it relates to the career that you're focused on. And you need to look at that. Do I need to get my CPA? Do I need to get my MPA? Is it critical for success or not? In some cases, you may have to go down, a path of additional education. In other cases, not. Volunteer for projects within your firm. Maybe you love your job, okay? You love the people, it's great money. Hey, I can see myself staying here, but you're not particularly challenged. We all go through career plateaus. Then you know what? Be proactive. Put yourself out there. Get on a project. And maybe the project doesn't exist within your own company. Maybe it actually exists within a nonprofit organization, and maybe it's something you do outside of work. But if you're looking for fulfillment, the answer isn't always changing careers. So we ask you to think about that. And then if you do decide that, hey, I need to change careers, or you're in transition, you need to seek other companies and industries, then obviously the strategy is a little bit different for that. And we will get that in a minute. Establishing career objectives. Again, identifying objectives, set a direction just like a CEO would do. List out the skills and the preferences that you would actually need for success in that role. Describe your ideal job. This should be part of your strategy. If we had time, something I'd ask everybody to do is write down your ideal job. Forget what you're doing right now and see how close your ideal is with what you're doing right now. Okay? And sometime to get to your ideal job, we were coaching somebody, last quarter I was coaching someone, just trying to help them along, and they couldn't, they were really having a hard time articulating their ideal job. And so I said, go back to your childhood. Go back to things that you did as a kid. Like, what did you get really excited about? What were you passionate about? And so it's interesting. So it's not an easy question to answer, but I encourage everybody to do that. Okay? And I'm going to kind of race through this because I know in the spirit of time. Before I do that, what constraints affect your career options? So if you think about additional training and education, I'm just going to throw this out because if anybody's interested. Robert Half, we have what's called Skillport, where we literally have 5,000 tutorials. And they're not just technical tutorials. A lot of it's on project management, leadership, confronting employees. I mean, on them. If anybody is interested here, we would offer that as a complimentary service. We'd get you signed up, and you could do it out of the luxury of your own home. So just kind of note that if there's interest, happy to help you. And again, what are your short and long-term objectives? So in review, right, in developing this career plan, having your assets, your strengths, your career objectives, think about your personal values. If you personally value and believe that human beings need to live in harmony with nature, you're not going to derive a lot of fulfillment working for a company whose products, pollute the environment, okay? So also knowing who you are as a person is also important so you don't come in conflict, okay, with those values. And then next, Chris, and I just need to do a time check, Derek, because I feel like we're going pretty long. Give me an idea.
Well, maybe 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes? Okay, Chris, you want to come on up? I'm just going to stay up so we can kind of go through it.
All right, we can speed through this quick. Okay, so network for success. Obviously, everyone knows what network is because they're here today. But network is definitely something that needs to be continued, whether you're working or you're not working. It's really the single most important career management skill to have. How many people belong to more than 5 networking associations or professional associations? Excellent. Excellent. Do you find that that helps you in your career today? Either of you?
Yes.
Okay. How many of us belong to at least 3 and go to once a month? Okay, I got some ups and downs. Okay. The idea behind these particular marketing or networking events is mainly to meet people. Amber had brought up the idea of relying on the online services that are available, meeting people. That's how people are getting jobs today. If you think about it, Monster and CareerBuilder did a fantastic job in branding their name. typically the first thing that one does when they need to post a resume is they go to one of those search engines. Well, think about it. Everyone is doing that. Everyone is posting that resume. They feel they got their job search complete now. Now they just got to wait and wait and wait till that phone call rings or that inbox comes full. The idea behind these network events is really to brand yourself and to meet people you know. I work with employers on a daily basis. Employers are being cautious about where they spend their money. In fact, they're asking themselves, should I even call Robert Half? They've helped me in the past. But there's a spend there. So what they're rather doing is they're asking the people in the office. They're asking the individuals that are within the department. Does anyone know anyone who might be interested in this particular position? Well, guess what? The person I sat next to in church a couple of Sundays ago might be the person that might be able to drop your name in the hat and say, yeah, I think I know someone. Guess what? You just got yourself a FaceTime or an interview with that person. And it goes even long beyond those type of network events, but we're talking about professional associations. You need to get yourself involved in one if you're not already. LinkedIn has groups, but there's also local groups in the organization geared towards the industry you might be in. I recommend you really, really take note of that. Companies value employees who not only have the technical expertise required for their jobs, but also exhibit a commitment to their profession. 86% of hiring managers surveyed recently cited involvement in industry or trade association as a beneficial to an employee's career. Expand your network. Joining events. Join a professional association. We talked about that. How many of us heard of the elevator pitch? Everyone seems to know that. Okay? Elevator pitch is essential because you never know where you're going to be. Whether you're just bumping carts in the shopping market or grabbing that same piece of celery. You might find yourself asking, what do you do for a living? You have 30 seconds to talk about it. That could be all that you need to get yourself some face time in front of a person that might be looking to make a hire. Networking for career success is a numbers game. The more contacts in your network who know you, the more likely you will secure leads, interviews, and interesting offers. For example, as I mentioned, I have three little ones. I got involved in the local PTC of the school. Just thinking and watching out for my kids, want to be there, want to know who's educating my kids. Well, a year later, I'm now the president of the association. And I found that all the parents now I get exposure to, and all the parents are working for companies. And these individuals are now friends that I can associate with that I might one day be working with, or I might be helping. So if you think about it, there's so many different areas of opportunity to brand yourself. You need to ask yourself, are you doing it? Talks a little about start a personal PR campaign. I think Amber mentioned that. The more personal your approach, the higher your chance of success. This means picking up the phone and asking someone for help. Don't just send out a broadcast email asking your contacts for assistance. You got to really be able to go the extra mile. Always keep in mind that networking is not just about what your network can do for you. If you don't offer your advice or connections to your contacts, they aren't going to be very motivated to help you. So you also got to think about it. Oh, yeah, I met Chris. Oh, he's going to get me a job. But I've never talked to you. I've never got to know you. You got to get to know the people that you look to put on your network. It's kind of something to think about. All right. Taking action steps to grow your career. Whoa. Just a highlight on this. Obviously, visibility is what's essential in this aspect. Visibility at work will enhance career prospects. It'll enhance compensation. It'll enhance marketability. Visible employees thrive in times of change. Restructuring, new boss, or a new position. Let's now look at a number of action steps to improve career visibility. So I'm going to go ahead and shift gears and have Peggy really more or less talk more about the steps to improve a career, especially if you're managing a career that already exists. So give me, turn it over to Peggy.
Okay, so really quickly, a lot of you probably are within your own career and you're looking, how do I actually manage it? How do I go further within it? And so communication, which we've stressed, I think, a lot. Just a couple of quick tips. The 80-20 rule, letting the other person communicate 80% of the time. Okay, so and you 20%, so being more of a listener. You've got like 2 ears for a reason and 1 mouth, right? So keep that ratio in perspective. I think that's a helpful tip. Voicemail tips, really quickly, I really urge play it again. When you leave a voicemail message, you don't have to do this all the time, but the ones where you kind of know, like you're leaving the message and you kind of feel like, oh, let me just play it again. Make sure you're okay with it, all right? And make sure that you're getting to the point quickly in the voicemail. We always recommend that you actually leave your name twice and your phone number twice and how they can get back to you. Okay, the next one with written communication. All right, so being able to actually keep communication and emails simple, know your audience, be upfront with your purpose in the email at the beginning, always proofread, and there's no excuse, you guys, for spelling or grammar errors in an email, not with technology today, okay? That's just you just clicking one more button, right? So to make sure you do it, it's a reflection of you. Oops. I am not good with this clicker, okay. The next one is step 12, becoming an expert. So become an expert in your field. If you don't have an expertise, if you're more of the like jack of all trades but master of none, really look at that. Okay, it's good to know a lot about a lot of things, but honestly, it's better to have some expertise in a few areas. So that would be part of kind of as you look at your strategy, challenge yourself on that. Become an expert. Share your knowledge with others. Senior executives, they don't really care how much you know. They really don't. If you're not willing to share that and develop others, it's going to minimize your strength right there. So please be willing to share. Be a resource for your peers and even for your boss. Okay. The next is versatility. And Chris, I think this is yours, but I'm going to just try to whip through this. Okay, so managers, obviously, they recognize and reward when you're really versatile. So offices are definitely lean and mean. We see that all the time with our clients. Impressions are shaped constantly and quickly. And so, think again how you can add value by being very versatile. The next is polish your professional image, okay? You can't hide behind email. You can't hide behind voicemail. So think about, okay, you have one chance to make a good first impression. So really looking at your image, all right? Be professional at all times to all people. You never know who you're interacting with. Develop an owner's mindset. Think of yourself as a C-level executive if you're not there yet. Think of yourself as that, okay? And then in terms of some image building tips, a couple of things just to throw out there is I think the phrase, "that's not my job," should never come out of our mouths. It's an image destroyer, all right? Wherever you can, because there's such a high expectations for managers for us to do a lot of things, we need to have the ability to multitask, okay? So really looking at that in terms of your own image. And honestly, just your daily interaction with people and being grateful, okay? Showing appreciation and being grateful is also part of our image. Next is accountability. Doing only what you're told versus realizing why and how your role impacts the bottom line, knowing how to meet client needs effectively, taking something and running with it. Don't wait to be asked, be proactive. Look for accountability at every level. If you work for someone who doesn't really hold you that accountable, you hold yourself accountable and let them know that you're doing it, okay? Whether you're having to create your own report or whatever it is, you make yourself accountable. You will stand out and get great visibility for that. Okay. And making it stick, long-term commitment. So building visibility is a long-term commitment, all right? Let's see here, reevaluate, share information, find the right time to ask, put things in writing, activity reports. We could go into a lot of great detail with this. I guess probably some key things on this is And this goes with kind of your communication and writing as well as reports, but keeping a paper trail. So saving email messages that commend your performance or thanking you for a job well done. Okay, those are good things to kind of save in your personal folder. I tell people to do it for a couple of reasons. Sometimes when you're interviewing with an employer, they'll say, what do other people say about you? You know, or tell me your strengths. And sometimes we're uncomfortable with that. And you could easily say, well, gosh, you know, actually I got an email last month from my boss and this is what they said. Okay, so it's a good thing to have. Plus, when you're having one of those days and you're not feeling so good, sometimes you need to go to that personal folder, seriously, right, and read those. Okay, strive to become a peak performer, so maintain high productivity levels and consistently. Always see the big picture. Again, think about the C-suite. What are they thinking? What's on their screen? What are the corporate objectives? Okay, don't procrastinate. Set realistic objectives. Make effective decisions. And Chris, do you want to run the rest really quickly, or want me to keep going? Okay, so diplomacy. So this is something too. It's just really about being diplomatic within the workplace. Not saying to be political, but to be diplomatic. Again, know your audience. Okay, know your audience on email, voicemail, and all your interaction. Protect your own credibility. Okay, so your integrity and honesty. Honestly, our personal reputation. That's really what. When all's said and done, right? That no one can take that from us. And so be sure to keep your word, honor your deadlines, and always admit when you're wrong. Leave the ego out, okay? When you're working on a team, when you're really like keeping that, you know, the company objectives in mind, leave your ego out, okay? It's okay to be wrong. The ones who don't admit it, you guys can build barriers. People aren't gonna trust you, and it's hard to regain it. So be true to yourself, keep your credibility, always share the credit. We instead of I, and resolve conflict proactively. A lot of us, that's something that we don't like to do, don't like to confront. There's actually, you guys, there's ways you can get trained and developed in that area. The skill port thing that I mentioned, we actually have something on confronting employees and situations. Implementing your action plan, really look at what areas do you want to focus on. So once you go through all of this, and I know we're dumping a lot of information, but really look and say, okay, what do I really want to focus on? What are my objectives over the next 30 days, the next 6 months? Again, put it in writing. Find a coach or a role model for each area. You don't have to have one career coach. If you've got someone that you think is just an amazing diplomat, right, in a corporate environment, it's like maybe you look to them for that piece. Maybe there's someone who writes a lot better than you. Maybe there's someone who has the ability to take technical reports and interpret them in a way that lay people can really understand. Figure it out, okay? What's critical for your role, and go seek out those people, okay? And have those role models, have those coaches. And then lastly, as we wrap up, and yes, we are wrapping up, revising your resume, you know, and we're here too. If there's anybody wants advice or career coaching, you can send us your email. We're happy to help you. But as you look at your resume, it should be a living document, okay? And you need to be constantly updating it, whether you feel like so secure in your job or not. Target companies. You need to have a target list of companies, even within your own company. Maybe you're targeting the next position. Absolutely expand your network, and there's no excuse with today's, like, in terms of all the technology, it's so easy, or so much easier to do, and then really never stop learning, okay? Always be growing and never stop learning. And if you look, and lastly, you know, the surveys that we do one on multi-generations. You've got your baby boomers, your XY, your Gen Y, your Gen X, and we all have different needs, etc. But with the recent recession, some people call it the Great Recession, in serving baby boomers, which would be people that would basically be, your baby boomers would be 46, yeah, and on. And so those folks, we're planning on staying around a lot longer. The retirement age is not even averaging, like people aren't thinking 64 anymore, we're thinking way beyond. And so in order for us to do that, as well as the people that are kind of coming up in the workforce, we need to be always learning and always growing and developing our skills, okay? So I thank you for your patience. I know it was a lot of information. Hopefully you have just a couple of takeaways that you can use today, and then if you're interested, we'll have a table and you're welcome to come see us. And that's it.
Thank you, Peggy and Chris. Just want to kind of go over the schedule because we've got a little bit longer in terms of our panelist discussion. We're going to have Matt come up next, and then we're going to have Q&A. We do have the room until 4, so we don't have to necessarily finish at 3 on the dot, but I want to respect your time. So we'll get to the roundtables after the Q&A, and then you can leave when it is appropriate. So next up, Matt.
right, can you hear me okay? Yes. Great. Well, thanks, Derek, very much. I'm Matt Donato. I'm the Senior Associate Director for Alumni Career Services at the university. I want to thank you all for being here today. I want to personally thank Derek, who organized the entire event today, as well as our excellent panelists. I thought Peggy, Chris, and Amber, you did a wonderful job. I think taking away from this, you guys have two unbelievably good handbooks now. One about sort of managing your professional social networking profile, and one about sort of managing a lot of aspects of the job search, managing your career. So definitely, refer to them often. I think those were two excellent presentations. You'll also notice that we're taping this presentation today. This will go up on our Mind Online site, University of Chicago Mind Online site. And since you don't probably get to travel to all of the cities in the U.S. where we have alumni events like this, we will actually be podcasting and or video casting many of our Career Month events in cities like San Francisco, Chicago, New York, and you can log on anytime and view those once they go up in early December. So you can actually see what other cities we're talking about in terms of careers, and I encourage you all to do that. We had a spirited debate about social networking and the pros and cons of it in San Francisco on Thursday evening, so Amber, you would have been a really good panelist for that. I want to briefly talk about career resources for alumni. They're all sort of summarized on this maroonish sheet that's over on the table here to my left. I encourage you to pick one up either now or on the way out. Yeah, do you have a question? Sorry.
Oh, sorry to preempt you.
No, that's okay.
I see a lot of these resources require an active CNET ID and password. And
yes.
I don't remember mine,
so the question is, a lot of the resources that we do have available, the online resources specifically, require a CNET ID and password. For more recent grads, you may already have your CNET ID if you graduated in the last few years. If you don't either know your CNET, don't remember it, you actually can get it through the website. If you go to the website alumniandfriends.uchicago.edu, in the sign-in area, there are instructions for how to access your CNET ID or to claim your CNET ID if you've never done that. We're trying to make the process more streamlined. I know it's not always the easiest process, but if you have questions, there's also a toll-free number that you can dial during business hours in Chicago, and you can talk to a live person generally who can help walk you through it. So we're trying to make the process as simple as possible so people can get onto our site, access the resources that are going to be useful for them, particularly around careers, because this is a key area for the university that we're trying to develop. It's a new area as well. Alumni Career Services didn't exist before 2008 when I came over to Alumni House from the undergraduate career office and started our team. And we did it because you told us this is what you wanted. We've done extensive surveying of our alumni community, and you said there's a high need for alumni career services in the alumni community, but a low level of service from the university. So we listened. They hired me. I guess that's hopefully a good thing. And we're now trying to bring more career resources out to the alumni community. I was mentioning to a few other people I was talking to earlier that my office exists, but we also have campus career offices as well. The CAPS, Career Advising and Planning Services Office, the Booth School Career Office, the Law School, Harris School, and School of Social Service Administration all have career offices that primarily serve students, but also do have resources available for alumni from those schools. So if you're a graduate of any part of the university, definitely check out the career office that's affiliated with your school or unit, but know that you can come to my office first as the one-stop shop to find out the resources that we have, and then sort of also go out to your appropriate career office to figure out if there's specialized resources. I was mentioning to someone here earlier that Booth School and Law School do have really great resources for alumni. Harris and SSA are developing more. So I strongly encourage you to check out the resources available to you. And again, on the maroon sheet that's on the table there, as a takeaway, you can find out generally what we offer. I've really focused my team on three primary areas: alumni to alumni professional networking, job opportunities for alumni, and sort of professional development, skill building resources that are going to help you through your career, through your job search, through your career management process. And we have some now. We'll be rolling more out as the months and sort of weeks go on. You know, a few networking resources that you should take advantage of. I was really pleased to hear Amber's discussion of the LinkedIn groups and to see how many people are on LinkedIn. How many of you are members of the University of Chicago alumni LinkedIn group? Okay, so a fair number of you. If you're not, go on this afternoon, tonight, this weekend, join the University of Chicago alumni group. There's a lot of University of Chicago groups out there. The two biggest ones are the Booth School group, which has about 10,000 members, and the University of Chicago alumni group, which I manage, that has about 7,500 members. My office took over management of that LinkedIn group from an alum who had started it a few years ago. And I'm really trying to move that group more to a networking and sort of career focus. And I think we're seeing a lot of progress on that. And recently, in the past 2 weeks, we've moved our alumni job board, our official alumni job board, to our University of Chicago alumni LinkedIn group. So if you want to find jobs that are coming through my office, employers that are contacting me who want to recruit University of Chicago alumni, or alumni who want to hire other alumni or see more alumni in their organizations, please join the LinkedIn group, go to the LinkedIn group, check the job board frequently. We are seeing an increased volume of job postings on there now, so I highly recommend that. The other networking resource that's available and that we're actively trying to improve is our Alumni Careers Network, which you do access through the Alumni and Friends website. It's a great tool, similar to LinkedIn, for finding and connecting with University of Chicago alumni, but there's a lot of information in the Careers Network that you might not even find in LinkedIn. And you can search on our Careers Network in a more direct way than you might be able to search for people in LinkedIn. So you can find more information because we are sort of a closed system and our data is protected by the CNET ID and password system. So we're able to share a little bit more, and alumni tend to choose to share more through our Careers Network. So I highly recommend using the Careers Network as a resource to find and connect with other university alumni as well. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Booth alum and you want to connect with a college alum, if you're a law school alum and want to connect with a Harris alum or a lab alum, you should access the Careers Network. A couple quick job search resources that we have available other than the LinkedIn job board. We do provide free access for all alumni of the university to vault.com. Vault is an online career library that has really good sort of professional guides, industry research, and career advice. They also have a pretty extensive job board. So, you know, I agree, actually, I think you may have said this, Chris, that you're not going to always have great success finding a job just through a general posting on a job board or on Craigslist or something like that. But it can be a good tool to find out, okay, who's hiring or what industries are hiring right now, or you know, maybe there's a position that I see on there and I can network my way into it using alumni connections or using connections that I might have in that organization. So while, you know, I don't know how successful you'll be applying to specific jobs on a job board, they can be good tools for you. Also, Vault, you know, it's a subscription service and we're providing it for free. So you'll get, you know, $100, $200 value depending on how many guidebooks you decide to download. But it is a really cool resource, and I highly recommend checking it out and using it. We also have job postings through Chicago Career Connection. That's a job posting board that the Career Advising and Planning Services Office runs. So you know, you can access that with your CNET ID and password. And again, all of this information is on the handout as well as on our Alumni and Friends online community. And lastly, I frequently do career advising sessions with alumni, either by phone or in person. So if anyone wants to talk about some specific aspect of their job search, about a career transition, about sort of just managing your career path, I'm happy to schedule time with anyone and everyone who would like to do that. We do have some limited staff resources, so I'm working with colleagues as well as some contractors about talking with alumni, but you rest assured you'll get good advice and you'll get hopefully something value added out of your conversation with us. And there's no charge, again, to schedule a career advising session. So if you'd like to do that, my email address is on the sheet here. I'm happy to give you a card, or you can, again, find our information on the website. I mentioned Mind Online, where we will be posting all of our Career Month events that we're recording. So I highly recommend going there. You can, basically travel to 5 different cities and hear their events and hopefully get some value out of that. We also have a number of our events from last year posted on Mind Online, so definitely go check that out. And we're going to be rolling out a number of new resources as well. Amber mentioned the Twitter feed. Actually, I thought about that. I've never pursued it. I'm going to do it now because I think it sounds really cool. I just posted that on your comment board. Okay, cool. I might need your advice. So, I'd like to do some innovative things like that. We're also partnering with some new services. One new service that we do have online, but it's not easy to get to yet through our website, and I'm trying to fix that next week, is Interview Stream. Interview Stream is a tool that the Booth School has used for a few years, and now we're offering it to all university alumni, where you can go in and, maybe you need to practice an interview. You want to practice, some responses to specific questions in preparation for an interview you have coming up tomorrow. You can actually go on to Interview Stream, sit in front of your webcam, and actually practice interviews. So you have someone, a taped person on the computer looking at you, asking you interview questions, and you can pick from thousands of different questions. And you can tape yourself answering those questions and then view your interview afterwards to sort of see what facial tics or verbal issues you might have in your interview. You can send it to a colleague or a friend for them to critique you and say, oh yeah, you did notice you say every other word, and that's not good. So you can sort of get some practice. It's not exactly like being in an interview room, but it's definitely a nice resource for you to take advantage of, and that will be more prominent on our website in the next week or two. Also, we're going to be partnering with some new companies who are going to help us not only increase the depth of networking within the alumni community, but also bring alumni more into contact with employers and almost real-time virtual job fairs. So look out for some of that information on our website. Keep checking back for new resources. So I'll stop there. I know I've talked for probably about 10 minutes. I appreciate your time and your attention. Thank you so much for being here today. And come out to more of these events, because this person-to-person networking, for all the virtual and social media networking you can do, there's really power in meeting people face-to-face, talking with people, getting a business card, shaking a hand. And by being here, you're helping to strengthen the alumni community here in Southern California, as well as the alumni community around the world, because the connections you make here are hopefully going to be lasting and might help you through a career transition or through a job search, or just help you think of what's the next step in your career now. The last thing I want to say, I want to put a plug in. I know some of you are looking for jobs, so this may not be as applicable, but I encourage you, if you are employed or if you're a hiring manager or you have access to hiring managers in your organization, please consider hiring alumni, hiring undergrads or grad students or business school students or law school students at your organizations. You can send any and all job postings my way, and I'll help get you connected to the right person on campus who can get those out to students or to alumni. And lastly, internships and externships, particularly for undergrads. I work closely with the undergrad career office on our Metcalf internship program, which are full-time summer internships for undergrad students, as well as our Alumni Board of Governors externship program. Those are 2 or 3 day shadowing opportunities during spring break for freshmen and sophomore students. If you have the ability to host an extern for 2 or 3 days during spring break, or have your organization hire an intern for 10 weeks over the summer, I encourage you to do so. And it's not only a great benefit to the students, it can be a great benefit to you, your organization. We have great students who can do real substantive work for your organizations, and you may be also interviewing future full-time hires down the road through the process. So if you have any questions about that, you can talk to me today, email me. I'm happy to answer anything else. So thanks so much for your time, and I think we're going to do a quick Q&A session, and then we're going to break into the roundtable. So I'll turn it back over to Derek.
Okay, I just want to drop one more resource too. I don't know if you're aware that we have a local club alumni website called UChicagoLA.com. We also have a Facebook group, and I really encourage you to kind of connect on there as well. There's plenty of events coming up in the pipeline. Next week we have a Harper lecture. We encourage you all to come. It's a great chance to meet other alumni from all the area. And it's a great way to kind of socially engage and to find out one-on-one where you're in your career search. So now let me open it up to questions, and you can address it to each or any of our panelists, and I'm going to recap the question for our video.
I have a question for Amber, mainly. I was wondering about developing your network and your career search as you have a current job. You know, I have a job that I love, but I'm also out there looking, and I find it very difficult to keep it under my hat. For instance, my boss is the UChicago alum, and he may very well see this on video, so. Do you have any advice for kind of
For your
walking
friend?
that line?
For your friend?
Oh, yes, for my friend.
You know, that's a really good question. And what I would say in the interim, if you are looking for a job and you're using any of these tools, is use the opportunity to showcase what you know. Because once you start putting information out there, you know, I know about this industry, or I attended this event, and that's why I was talking to you guys about, you know, telling people you were here today. Because that means that you take your career seriously. You're attending events, you want to improve yourself, you want to meet other people. That makes you way better than all the other people who are, you know, hanging out watching TV today. And in your case, what I would say is use this time to really building that network of people who can provide you with opportunities. When someone mentioned about commenting on the New York Times article, if you see an article that's related to your industry, you can tweet that out saying, hey, I just read this really great article on SEO. And if that's pertinent to your industry. And then someone says, they read it and say, oh, that's really good. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sending this to us. You can do subtle little things like that that really say a lot about you and your personal brand and what you would bring to a new employer. So I would really look at things like that while you're in your stealth job search of making sure that people know that you know your stuff. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks.
I have a question for Amber. In one of your early slides, you recommended that we place our mindset into that of a hiring manager.
Yes.
Well, I've never met a hiring manager. I've only dealt with the boss, so I have no idea what a hiring manager wants or doesn't want.
Your boss is your hiring manager. It's whoever hires you.
But that's no longer the case.
What do you mean?
Those were in the past. I'm now doing something not different, but I'm now looking for a job. I used to work in Europe. Now I'm placed myself here in California, and will be looking for a job.
Okay.
So the style of finding a job or being interviewed is completely different here than what I experienced in Europe.
Okay. What I would say in that case is really all I mean is think about the people that you would be potentially up against. Think about, you know, make up a scenario of Joe Smith, who has everything that's on the job description, and really use these social media sites to say, well, you're awesome at all of this stuff. And think about what the person who's going to interview you, the recruiter who may pre-screen you on the phone, the person you'll ultimately be interviewing for, would like in this person that they're going to hire. And when you tweet about things that are pertinent to how you're really following trends in your industry, how you're staying current, how you're keeping your skills relevant and up to date, and you can do so much to get the job before you even get the interview if you use all these tools and tactics really, really well. For example, the network that I've developed on Twitter, they are hardcore solid, who help me really do a lot of the work that I do. And these don't have to be people in your own backyard. I have a gal in Michigan who I met on Twitter who helps generate a lot of traffic for my blog. I have someone else, I've been in Washington, D.C. that really helps promote me. So when you start creating this network of people who not only know you and can vouch for you, but then start actively saying how great you are, that is amazing, because when you have a reputation that precedes you, for any job interview, you are so blowing your competition out of the water. And that's what all these social media sites really allow you to do. Does that help?
Kind of.
And I think too, hiring manager is sort of a general term. I think there's different types of hiring managers. There's the HR person who might have posted the job and might be screening resumes for the position. There's the people that you're going to go interview with who may or may not be your boss, but maybe future colleagues who are assigned to the interview team to interview you. And then there's probably the person you're directly going to be reporting to, who's going to be, you know, your boss or one of your bosses. And I think you want to make sure that, as Amber pointed out, whatever public information is out there. I know as a hiring manager myself, so I've hired specific people in my roles at the university. I was sort of the final decision maker in terms of who I hired. You know, before I made that final, okay, I'm gonna, yeah, I did the reference checks, I did the interviews, reference checks, resume screens, all that. I went and looked on people's LinkedIn profiles. I went LinkedIn, I went to their Facebook page. You know, maybe, I don't know how kosher this is, but I looked through people's pictures on their Facebook page. You know, if someone has a, you know, photo of themselves in a swimsuit, you know, is that appropriate? I mean, do you want that to be your public profile? Does that matter in terms of the job? You know, I don't know. But it's sort of out there and it's somewhat voyeuristic and anyone can see it. So you want to make sure that whatever information is out on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, whether it's pictures, words, you know, you're subscribing to the radical something site out there, just be careful about what shows up on your page. Because anyone who's involved in the hiring process is really a hiring manager and can see something about you. And you want to make sure that you know, you're controlling what your image is. I think that was a lot of what Amber was saying in her presentation. In terms of getting through the process here, which may be different than in Europe or outside of the US, I think networking is critical. I think networking is going to be key. Networking is often the key to getting your resume past the HR screening process. If you can network your way into an organization, then submitting your resume and cover letter can be a formality. If someone on the other side of the HR professional knows that you're applying and wants to interview you, you're going to have, the HR screener doesn't even matter. You need to make sure that the person who's going to be conducting the interviews, maybe hiring you, knows you, or you can somehow network your way in. That's going to help you get through the initial screenings and then into the interview chair. And from there, you sort of take it yourself. I mean, that's, you know, your resume, you know, helps the initial part of the process, but really it's you in the interview room that makes the big difference. And if you want to talk more about that afterwards, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, let's take a couple of questions. I do want to respect the roundtable time too, so go ahead.
So I've been a little bit hesitant to use social media to network, and I think my hesitation stems from the fact that, you know, my friends and acquaintances, they might want to hear about, you know, what movies I enjoy watching, but that's not really part of, like, that's irrelevant to my professional life. And they, my friends and acquaintances, might not want to hear about the legal brief that I'm working on. Like, that's boring, that they want to dismiss that. How do I balance the two?
That's a really good question. What sites do you use currently?
Well, I just joined Facebook literally like 2 weeks ago, and I haven't even posted anything on it because I'm so hesitant. I just joined Twitter like a month ago or something.
Okay, well for Facebook it's really easy. You can categorize people into different groups, so only certain people see certain things. So you can create a friends group, and you can post something saying, oh, I saw this coolest movie, such and so was so great in it, and just post it to only those people see it, and all the rest of the people don't. I have my Facebook profile locked down, so it used to be where no one could see it, except for people that I personally invited, and then Facebook changed their privacy settings, so now it's the most private, which is friends of friends who can see you. So they'll see my picture and they'll see my websites. But for me, Facebook is one of the things I do lock down, and I only let certain people into that network. That's why I also have a Facebook business page, because that's my more professional face. And if I want to talk about something silly my dogs did, I can tell my friends group on Facebook. And then the same thing goes with Twitter. You can't lock that down. You can create a private account, and a lot of people do that, but it kind of defeats the whole point of being in a social networking site if you're gonna be private with your information. What you can do, however, is you can create another Twitter profile and just have that one be private and have that just be your friends, and then create one that's open and have that be your professional face. I do that. I do have, believe it or not, I do have certain issues with privacy. Like for PlanCast, for example, it says where you're going to go and when you're going to be there. I don't want the world to know that. And I'll tell people frequently about things I did after the fact, but I won't tell them before because I just don't want that kind of information out there. So for PlanCast, I only connect with people that I know personally, that I'm not scared anything's going to happen. So in all these sites, lots of times there are certain kind of privacy features linked in, but for the ones that aren't, you can always create some sort of alias or something. And if you want to do something on Twitter that's just for your friends to connect and just as for fun, make up a name. Just put your first name. Lock it down so it's private. There's lots of good ways that you can stay off the grid. And then just put out your professional stuff in another account in another capacity.
Okay, let's take one more question. And any other questions, you can speak to Andrew afterwards too.
I have a question about Twitter also, and I guess it's for everybody, really for everybody, which is, you know, I am on Twitter, but I'm not particularly active. And when I signed up about a month or two ago, I was struck by when it scrolled through all my Gmail contacts, I had a bunch of friends, like 80 friends who were on there. But then when I looked at all their accounts, virtually all of them had 0 tweets or maybe 1 tweet, and the 1 tweet they had was like, "I'm on Twitter, everybody." And I know
everybody's first tweet.
Yeah, and I know I've heard, you know, in the media in the last couple of months, I've seen a couple things on the news where people talk about how Twitter has become more about celebrities and them kind of communicating with their fans, which I know is not exclusively the case. But my question is, what do you think is kind of a threshold critical mass of how frequently, if you're going to be on something like that, you know, you talk about committing to whatever you're on, like how do you balance not being annoyingly often in your posts and not being kind of uselessly infrequent in your posts? You know, is it kind of like a once a day? I mean, obviously it depends on what your goal is, but I'm curious your thoughts since you've been on these different things, how you balance that.
In regard to your friends, there are an insane amount of people who sign up for Twitter because they think, oh, that's what you're supposed to do, and then they never return to their account. In regards to the celebrity aspect, you know, there are celebrities on there are companies on there, there's all kinds of information on there, and you can shape your experience to whatever you want it to be. You can see who you want to see, and you can ignore who you don't want to pay attention to. In regards to frequency, I'm in a group that is very engaged in Twitter, and again, it is my most favorite platform, and I know some of you have a preconceived notion that it's frivolous, that people are saying, I just had a peanut butter sandwich. There are those kind of people. You don't have to pay attention to them. I have met leaders in social media, I have met authors of books, I have met people who do the lecture circuit, all because of my engagement on Twitter. And the people who really understand the space do engage. Now, to your point about frequency, like anything, if it's a hobby, you're not going to get much out of it. If you take it very seriously, of this being one of the core components of your professional networking, I can tell you the opportunities are limitless. I'm managed to find a lot of people in my own backyard in Los Angeles who are so entrenched in this space. One of my good friends, he's been on it for a couple of years, he has 111,000 tweets. Okay, he talks a lot. But he's also very highly respected, and he's a real influencer in the space because people know that they can follow him and they're going to find really good information because he sifts through a lot, and then he puts out stuff that he thinks people will be interested in. I say I can do as few as 20 tweets in a day, maybe as many as 50. And that's not me saying, oh, I just did this. That's me establishing and maintaining a really solid network. You know, I told people today I was coming here today. Lots of people sent me good luck. I wrote a blog post about coming here today and asked other people to chime in on it to give you all really good advice. And in the blog post, I invite you all to ask me any questions that you might not have a chance to today, and I will respond to you. So that's a hub. And I've already had people chime in on that because of the network I've created. I started my blog before I was on Twitter, and it was like crickets. Nobody there. And I've used Twitter to really create a solid network of people who engage with me and really help promote me. I've gotten all kinds of opportunities because of Twitter, so I cannot speak highly enough about it. So in regards to frequency, when you start following Twitter chats, when you start following hashtags that are relevant to your industry, you're going to start meeting people. And the key mistake people make with Twitter is they talk out. I did this, look at me, I'm here. They don't engage. And if you're just going to talk at people, you may as well get a soapbox and a big megaphone that's down in the corner. No one wants to hear that. But if you're going to use it to engage with people and meet people, it is incredibly powerful. And that requires frequency. So I'm there every day. Sometimes I have more time to be there than not, but I always check in, at least with a handful of tweets every day. And sometimes I might take an hour. What is so-and-so up to? Oh, I have someone I met on Twitter who's publishing a book. She created a contest to name her book. I helped promote her. So it's also not just about promoting yourself, it's about promoting others. And when you really get involved, you're going to find your tweet frequency goes up because your network's going to be bigger. And you're going to check in with Bob, who tweeted yesterday he had a really big presentation coming up today. So you're going to tweet Bob the next day, how'd the presentation go? And that's how you're keeping this network of people solid, and they care about you. And they're going to remember you when things come up that could be beneficial to you because you've created this relationship with them.
Okay, I really appreciate the panelists for each of their contributions. It's been really a great discussion of what tools are out there and what resources you have. We'd like to transition this now to the roundtables that are specific about the topics of mergers and acquisition, law, finance, entertainment. Not all of our panelists can stay, so I just recommend to use the time wisely, ask questions, and build networks. So let's transition to the roundtables in the back. The placards on the name of the cards indicate which theme this discussion will follow.